Now we're going to talk about the different forms of money in reference to the definition of what money is acting as. So first off, what we have are two definitions of money. We have M1 and M2. So M1 is anything that acts as money now, and M2 is not quite money now. It can be exchanged for money. And when we're referring to money now, we're talking about as a medium of exchange. So what could you go to the local store and use as money? Now, one thing that doesn't count is credit, because credit is a loan, and that's not the same thing as money. So we can't count that. So if we look over here, we have the M1 and M2. So M1 includes currency, traveler's checks, what we call demand deposits, which are like checking accounts. If I bring money into the bank, I've deposited it, but it's my demand, it's demand deposits. Then M2 includes all of M1, which we'll talk about later, including things we're going to save for later that we can't use right now. So with a savings account, you may have an ATM card, but it's not the same thing as being able to swipe that card at a local restaurant, say. There's also what we call time deposits and retail money funds, which are other forms of saving money. As we can see from the bar chart here, or the stack chart, is that a lot of money is in savings. We have some money in currency, some's in demand deposits, a very slim margin in checking, and even smaller in traveler's check. And then most money is in savings or some sort of savings account. Then there's time deposits like a 3-year bond or a 3-year CD or a 6-month CD, something like that. And then retail money funds, what we call money market accounts. There's some more money there, which usually has a little bit higher interest rate attached to it. So anything that fits M1, that definition, it's the narrowest definition, is anything that acts as a medium of exchange. So when you go to McDonald's, what could you use to pay with? So for the most part, I could walk in and get currency, give them some money. Traveler's checks is something a little bit that's abstract for students, but basically it's money. It's a check. There's demand deposits, which we usually call checking accounts, and then other forms of accounts that are also checkable against them. So I could write a check. Now, McDonald's itself might not accept checks now. I don't know their policy currently, but the idea is you can pay for stuff right now. You don't need to exchange it for anything. So money includes some things like money, check cards, checking accounts, anything with checkable deposits. And like I said before, credit cards are not money, even though you can use it as a medium of exchange. Credit cards technically are a loan, and it's not the same thing as what we're talking about here with M1 and M2. Now M2 is money that could be used as a store of value. So money that people are storing for future consumption. Now, if I hold $20 in my pocket in cash, that counts as M1 because I can go and spend that right now. But it also counts as M2 because I can save it. So by definition, everything in M1 is also included in M2. So if we kind of look at the pie chart here, here's the value of M1. And then inside of M2, you can see the pie is bigger because M2 is always bigger. M1 is about $1.6 trillion in whatever year this came from. And then we have some other stuff that fits into M2 as well. So M2 will always be larger than M1 because if it is M1, it's also M2. But there are parts of M2 that are not M1, and that's where the store of value piece comes in. So once again, M2 includes everything in M1 plus savings accounts, money market accounts, small time deposits. So once again, we'll cue some elevator musics and maybe some lightsaber warfare. What's always larger, M1 or M2? You guessed it, M2 is always larger. And once again, there's the explanation. So think about this problem. And you can pause it if you'd like here. During a recession, what do you think would happen to M1 and M2? Well, as I'm sure you got the answer, during a recession, what do you think would happen? M1 would shrink as more people saved money because of the recession. So they might move money from a checking account into a savings account because they're not going to spend as much. They're going to want to save more because the recession's coming. They're unsure about the future. They're less confident. So they're going to save more. So M2 isn't necessarily going to grow. We're just moving it out of M1 and M2 only into M2. So this affects the circular flow of money as not as much is spent because of an uncertain future, and so the circular flow begins to break down, and this becomes problematic and could expound the problem of an already happening recession as more and more people save more. And that's something that John Maynard Keynes, when we talk about macro, we'll get into him, but he talked about the paradox of thrift, that savings was bad during a recession. You need to spend because that'll kickstart the economy and the circular flow.